Shalom, Yashala. First and foremost, I'd like to say Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rakwah HaKadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and salutations to the sincere Aki. I'm pushing this truth in all due diligence and sincerity. I'm making this video by way of an economic update for the brothers here in the UK. But of course, brothers in the States are also gonna, experience similar things to what's coming here in the UK in April. So, here in the UK, in England, so called Great Britain, our tax year is from April to April. Um, that's the period between which the government decides whether they're going to roll with the pre-existing tax setup, whether they're going to continue taxing people at 20%, if they're going to increase that, if another thing which we pay, which is national insurance, is going to also increase, um or whether that's going to also remain the same. You have other things that come out your account, your pay automatically. But you know ultimately, man, that's just down to your personal situation. Now, obviously, Esau Edom is using these processes to funnel money up to the elites, man. The so-called, you know, the so-called Jew, Amalek, names like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, those devils. But they advertise tax as if, let's just type it in. So they advertise the tax as if it goes back to, your community and building your roads and all the rest of it. But no, man, it just goes right back up into the pockets of the elites, man. That's why your borough never sees any improvement. That's why, the ghettos still remain the same. They might have some gentrification and move Jake out, but ultimately that's just to get rid of the niggas, man, to put it bluntly. The government uses revenue from income tax to provide funding for public services, apparently, such as the NHS. However, currently, UK inflation is at 5.4%, and they gave the NHS a 1% pay rise. All of that clapping did nothing. Education and the welfare system. The education system is a shambles. Now it's even got worse. You had through the pandemic, which was, part of their plan. You had it to where teachers haven't been in school for ages. They're having to drop the standard of GCSE grades this year, which are the national exams students do in their final year of secondary school. I don't know what, like, I think that's basically in America, that's the equivalent of just before high school, which we call college. They're dropping the standard of those examinations because the students are less intelligent because they haven't had time in the classrooms. It's a public school system anyway, but it says education and the welfare system. So they're saying, the benefit system where people, seek jobs, get job seekers allowance, etc. This revenue is also used for other investments for public use, such as road construction, railways, and housing. The roads are atrocious. It's bullshit. What is national insurance used for? National insurance contributions are a tax on earnings and self-employed profits paid by employers and the self-employed. They can help to build your entitlement to certain benefits depending on whether you are employed or self-employed, such as state pension or maternity allowance. So they say that this goes towards your state pension, or while you're off, it goes to an allowance, which ultimately helps you out whilst you retire, when you retire. But you see, we live in a debt-based system where the government has pretty much purposely debased the fiat currency we currently operate under, which is popularly known as the Great British Pound, man. The British Pound is nothing but a fiat-based system. It is, one of its names is the sterling, because when you look on the pound sterling note, it tells you that the bearer should be paid on demand the sum of pounds stated on the note, whether it be a fiver, a tenner, £20, or 50. But of course, the Bank of England does not have the sterling to back that up. Why? Because they are in debt. Because they've spent more money on the pandemic than they have actually in their reserves, man. The Bank of England is the equivalent in the UK of the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is neither federal because of the fact that they are not operated by the federal government. They are a private entity owned by Amalek, and they are also not a bank because they don't have any reserves, man. They're just an entity that pretty much controls the financial system. And what did the Bowers say? We'll give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws, man. However, I'm gonna start off with the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter, and I'm gonna go straight to the point, verse 5. I'll start from 5, talking about this devil Esau Edom that currently rules the planet, man. It says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and keepeth him unto him all people. Because you see, this man ultimately, these metropolis cities, whether it be London, where brothers are at here, or New York, and on the east side of the states, LA on the west side, ultimately, man, all these metropolis cities are built for Esau's betterment, in that he allows these nations above to get above Jake, whether it be Ishmael with his dirty kebab stores and crackhead chicken joints, Elam in the mix of that, whether it be you know um Moab with the crackhead Chinese food, or Ham with their their different their institutions, whether that be the Uber driving and all the rest of it. But essentially, he allows these nations to get one up on Jake, and Jake are the biggest consumers ever. He uses our own people, the coons of our nation, the entertainers, to sell that bullshit to Jake, the designer clothes, the liquor, the lifestyle, the Cirocs, the Gucci, the Louis, and all the rest of it. And Jake are just consuming everything, man. Get like the bottom of the barrel, working for scraps and slave labor, and throwing it back into Esau's system. The majority of Jake were off for 2 years in the UK, getting 80% of their salary. And the first thing they did when they got the opportunity to was go on holiday, throw it into designer, go to football games, because Jacob saw his children are stupid, man. They got the money and reinvested it right back into Esau Edom society, man. But that's because the devil has taught them how to do that. The scripture says that the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth him. But dissecting the scripture, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, this man's philosophies, man, the way that he teaches people to operate, even the fact that he's teaching people the improper use of money, because the actual nation of America is in debt by over 100% of its GDP. That's the equivalent of you earning, let's say, hypothetically speaking, £2,000 a month and being in debt by £4,000, meaning that if you wanted to pay that debt off over the 2 month period, for example, you would have 2 months of literally getting paid for your work and having nothing to show for it. So you would literally just have to survive on scraps, or you'd have to spread it over 4 months and just about manage. But then in a country's case like America, if they wanted to repay their debts, in order to save some money to make sure the country could operate, let's say a bridge breaks down, or emergencies happen where people get sick and they need to pay the medical staff to treat them, they'd still have to have some sort of reserves, man. But they'd have to withdraw money from something else. So they would have to withdraw things like Section 8 or welfare, and tell those people that have been on those benefit systems for years that they're gonna have to just go out and find something to do, whether it be bin men or street cleaners or whatever. And you know what? That's gonna cause riots and protests in the street, man. You know, or they'd have to, come at the rich and try and get their money. But then you'll have what happened with the sea pandemic, where the rich just move from different cities to escape the taxes, or they just leave the country. And then not only do you then have a problem of not being able to tax them, but then you lose the money of the super rich within those societies also, because they can literally just up and move, or move to a tax-free state. So this America is done, man. Look, if you look at it financially, it's over, man. This place is done. Yet also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. There's a documentary that I found out personally about, from Elder Apostle Gabar, and that is all wars are bankers' wars, because everything this devil does has a financial um measure to it, whether it be in the medical system, whether it be to do with the police. Because for example, you look at this whole pandemic, yeah, although the juice has been made free to people, the majority of the money that was generated from this went to the super elites, man, and their lesser luminaries. Let's look at, for example, one second. Let's look at this. Uh, See, they're trying to. I found this information earlier, and 1 second. Matt Hancock's. Essentially, Matt Hancock had yeah, that's it. Matt Hancock's family firm won, what's that, 300,000 NHS contracts. Claims for look at that. So Matt Hancock's family firm that won 300,000 NHS contracts claims furlough grants. The health secretary is among a raft of senior conservative figures to have benefited from the government's, financial support packages, to the dismay of those representing the 3 million UK workers ineligible for handouts. So this guy was the health secretary, and essentially he set up a company that was supposed to be working to supply PPE, which is basically the protective gear that nurses and doctors wear. The face masks and the plastic aprons and the rest of the shit that they wear. He set up a company in the midst of this virus to basically put on a front. It was money laundering, nothing but that. But he put on a front like his sister was going to help to get this material delivered to the front line for nurses, etc. And you had situations where nurses were going in there with no equipment, no nothing. I even seen clips with bin bags and all the rest of it. But then his family pocketed 300,000. Now, because this was done, probably set up not as a limited company, but as some sort of charity or communal business, he's not gonna pay a shred of tax on that 300,000. That's just straight into the pocket of him and his sister, man. 300,000 just off the bat. Whereas you had other working class people, man, and of course these people are wicked. But just to put it into perspective, you had so-called working class people losing their businesses that needed that money, and they didn't get shit. You know why? Because this has all been a setup, man. It's been the largest wealth transfer in history, man. You know. Okay, Topwood, the company co-founded by Mr. Hancock's sister Emily Golroth, has claimed up to 20,000 in two retention scheme grants since December, a database held by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs shows. And that's the Queen's little setup, HMRC. They're the equivalent of the IRS in the States. Earlier this year, the company in which Mr. Hancock owns around 50% of the shares was awarded a 300,000 contract by NHS Wales for confidential waste destruction. For confidential waste destruction, they get a £300,000 to dispose of waste. But this is what I'm saying, man. This is the devil that we're dealing with. You get the gist of what I'm saying. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is his death, and cannot be satisfied. The medical system is designed for that. The incarceration, the prison system is designed whereby the prisons are paid per prisoner. I know that's how it works in Babylon, and I forget the specifics of how it works here in the UK. But essentially, even the fact that they get you to do that communal work, community service, they call it, that is nothing but free slave labor, man. They might put an electronic tag on you and get you to go do some building or construction or gardening, or if you're a skilled laborer, they'll get you to do something more relevant, some painting, doing some hardcore DIY, chopping down trees, wood, etc. They get paid basically for prosecuted each prosecuted assailant, whether you be innocent or not. They get the prisons get the prisons benefit. They get certain amounts of grants for basically the amount of prisoners that they've got to maintain. The staff have shifts to do because they got to look after more prisoners. It's all a setup, man. Everything this man does, his medical system is about continuously making you more sick so that you have to keep coming back. This medical system is not about healing you, because if it was, it would be, they just get into the herbs, and the herbs ain't expensive. They got this juice, this devil juice that they have to store at like over minus 70 degrees. There ain't no herb that got to go through that intense cold. But that's because this man is trying to purposely make people sick. You see all of the videos coming out shaming the devil potion, but it's the wiles of the devil, man. This is what he's doing. This is exactly what this man is about, man. And I started this video off with this video in the background right here. You see what's happening right now is the same thing that happened previously in ancient Rome, where before the total downfall of the society, you had obviously the degradation of the people. You also had the degradation of the currency and the infrastructure itself around the country. The whole jurisdiction of Rome was falling apart, man. And ultimately, within Rome, you had it to where, because of the fact that Rome wasn't able to, gain gold from wars or extract it from natural resources, they started to devalue their currency, man, by removing the gold out of the coins, unto the point where it was pretty much completely nothing but a piece of shitty metal. And the reason they had to do that was because the soldiers needed to get paid in order to continue fighting. And if they had stopped paying their soldiers, they'd either have, mutiny in the streets, or their soldiers would pretty much either succumb to their enemies, or just pretty much join the other side and fight against the Roman Caesars, man. And so as a result of that, they had to devalue the currency to try and keep people under the gut, and increase the distractions, the theaters, the arenas, the fighting, to make sure that people remained what's the word, you know, under the guise that things were normal, man.
Last year, the inflation rate in the US rose to its highest level in decades. Though nothing like the sort of hyperinflation that drove the value of the German mark from 320 to 4.2 trillion to the dollar in the wake of World War I, the recent price increases have foregrounded the fickleness of money in many American minds, and made ancient historians, like yours truly, think about the inflation that destroyed the Roman currency in the 3rd century AD. In modern America, the government issues money to serve as a medium of exchange and value storage throughout the national economy. The Roman Empire, by contrast, minted coins for one purpose and one purpose only: to pay its own expenses. The emperors recognized that it was a good thing to have money circulating through the provinces, not least because it made taxes easier to collect. But the nature and the number of the coins they issued were always determined by their financial obligations. The emperors had many sources of income. The most important was taxation, levied both directly, in the form of land and poll taxes, and indirectly, through customs duties and taxes on inheritances, auctions, and the manumission of slaves. Tax revenue was supplemented by the income from properties owned directly by the imperial house, which included everything from massive estates to marble quarries to tenements in Rome. The revenues produced by taxation, the imperial estates, and the occasional war were balanced, and sometimes dwarfed, by expenditures. The emperors had to pay a small but elite bureaucracy. They had to finance massive building projects. They had to sponsor gladiatorial combats and beast hunts. They had to subsidize the Egyptian grain barges that fed the city of Rome.
So essentially, what this video is saying is that the emperors, of course, one of the principal things they were funding was war. Rome was constantly in war. You had you had so many people that came up against ancient Rome. Hannibal Barca was one of them. He got up to the gates of Rome, but was conquered, because it wasn't that time. You had a lot of Israelite uprisings as well. The zealots were constantly fighting against the Roman soldiers. They had to get paid, man. The Roman senators also had to pay their senate, man. They had to make sure that their advisors were on their side. You had the year, I think it was the 7 Caesars, if I'm not mistaken. It might be Salakia if I got the number wrong, but you had a quick succession of Caesars that were killed one after the other. This came after Julius Caesar was assassinated by Brutus and the other assailants. He was stabbed to death because they betrayed him, because they felt he was weak, you know, and couldn't be trusted. No, sorry, they felt he was getting he wasn't suitable for the throne, and he was getting too powerful. The month of July was named after him, and they felt that he was being deified and pretty much too quickly, and was becoming too powerful, so they killed him. But ultimately speaking, the senators of Rome would have to pay for their senate, the army. They'd have to pay for gladiator games, give gladiators hefty rewards for winning. Now, here in the UK, for example, and in America, you got the NBA, but it's the same thing, man. Here in the UK, Premier League footballers are getting £350,000 a week, becoming millionaires like it's nothing. players are getting sold for 50 million here, 100 million there, 77 million there. You're getting you know, these massive stadium projects being built by these football clubs, and it goes a long way towards, you know, pacifying the people. The football, when the football wasn't on during the lockdowns, people were ready to lose it, man. And then they started introducing it, and then you see the people go back into that sedated spirit. It's the same with the NBA. You know, you've got the situation right now with the NATO expenditure. Trump was basically saying when he was in power, and it ain't changed much, that NATO doesn't invest much into NATO, man, in comparison to America, man. America pretty much invests over like 5 to 10% of the entire NATO bill, and the rest of the nations have little speckles here and there. But hey, America holds the majority of the footing for the bill, man. You got it to where political leaders right now have to pay all kinds of money to run a political race, because running a candidate race for presidency, especially in America, or to be the prime minister, is not cheap, man. You got to pay for a lot of stuff. You got to pay for the advertisement, pay for all of that. So a lot of money is being wasted, and a lot of these countries operate on a debt-based model where they're spending more money than they're making, man. You know, which is not sustainable, man. The scripture talks about, the thick clay, man. Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, and I want to go straight to the point in verse 9. The thing that have been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It have been already of old time which was before us. You know, there is no remembrance of the former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. So essentially, man, that deja vu thing, it's a real thing, man. And ultimately, man, it's because these things happen, man, have happened before, and history is repeating itself, man. The same leaders are coming back making the same mistakes in a different time, man. Habakkuk 2:6, shall not all these take up a parable against them, and a taunting proverb, and say, woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. The word clay goes into the Hebrew word right here. Just a second. Abadjat, yeah, which means weight of pledges, heavy debts, man. Lays himself heavy with debts, you know, has to pay the armies, has to pay the sports entertainment and the music stars to keep the wickedness going, has to, you know, continuously foot the bill for these welfare systems and these initiatives around, you know, around like paying people to isolate and all the rest of it, to make sure that they don't go crazy and lose it. Because in the words of Gerald Celente, when people have nothing to lose, they lose it, you know. And that's what this man is trying to do. He's trying to keep these people sedated long enough for him to literally get them in that trap spell, man, where that fiat currency that they depend on so much, that paper dollar bill, yo, those pound sterling notes are done away with, man. And then when he can pounce on them with that Revelations 13-16, he's gonna do exactly that, man. You see, because these people don't understand what real riches are, man. And in the ancient Roman Empire, man, they allowed wickedness to happen. They allowed the gold and silver to get taken away. But when you understand what real money is, gold and silver being the Most High Yahweh Shai's money, man, and the fact that our forefather Abraham was extremely rich in it, same with his descendants down underneath him. You understand the importance of a just balance, man. An unjust balance is an abomination unto the Lord. Genesis the 13th chapter verse 12, and Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. You know, straight into the point, man. You know, it tells you about Abraham's substance, man. And, you know, he had a nephew Lot. He gave some of his substance onto his nephew also, man. You know, but Esau Edom has a setup where rather than having it to where the wealth is distributed evenly, he hoards and keeps as much of the rewards as he can to the elites. I'm gonna play a bit more of this, get to a few more scriptures, and then cut it there. But you can get the information from the references if you want.
That fed the city of Rome. And above all, they had to pay the troops. By ancient standards, the Roman army was enormous. The almost 500,000 men who were permanently under arms by the early 3rd century represented a colossal investment and a gargantuan burden. Soldiers were paid well, earning about as much each year as a skilled craftsman, and officers were paid much better, to the point that their salaries alone accounted for almost a quarter of the total payroll. In addition to wages, the emperors had to meet the costs of provisioning the troops, which could rise exponentially in times of war. Although it's impossible to calculate the budget of the Roman Empire with anything like precision, a few estimates have been made. The most comprehensive of these suggests that, in the middle of the 2nd century, the annual expenditures of the imperial government averaged around 1 billion sestertii. Of this, something like 700 million sestertii, that is, about 70%, went to the army. To pay the troops and meet their other obligations, the emperors minted coins. The gold coin, the aureus, was used for high-value transactions and to store wealth. But it was the silver coin, the denarius, that was the true core of the monetary system, and the medium in which troops and officials were usually compensated. For almost 2.5 centuries, the Roman monetary system, anchored by the denarius, was remarkably stable. But even at the best of times, imperial expenditures tended to exceed tax revenue. To make up the difference, the emperors relied on new gold and silver from mines and successful wars. When these supplies fell short, there were only 2 possible solutions: deferring payment, always dangerous since unpaid soldiers were mutinous soldiers, or debasing the currency, making coins, in other words, that contained less gold and silver.
Straight into the point, man. And that's exactly what's happening in this society. Like, we've gone past the point of not using gold and silver. Now we're using fiat currencies, man, which are being devalued, because in order to increase inflation, you need an increase in money supply, and you need an increase in velocity. You need more money chasing less goods, and you need a lot more of it in the system, or flowing through the system, pretty much, man, diluting the value of the existing money that exists. Now, on top of that, they're also going to increase how much they're taxing brothers here, people here in the UK, I should say, for the year of 2022. Starting from April, they're going to increase what's known as natural insurance contributions here, which is some old bullshit ESOL uses to get more money to the elites, and they're going to be increasing that by £15 per month. On top of that, you're going to have it to where, as you can see correctly, thousands of flat owners hit with bill right increases of up to 700% for uncapped heat and electricity. So essentially, if you live here in London in a block of flats, that's our equivalent of the projects, where, like, rather than having what's known as a domestic energy bill for your gas, water, and electricity, you might have a commercial one. So you might have a big company that owns the rights to your building, or a whole project, the whole block, and then they might decide EDF are the suppliers for this whole building. So no matter what happens, you're going to be paying your bill to EDF, and you can't domestically decide that you're going to go to npower or whoever. Yeah. So if EDF say, well, now you're going to all pay £1,000 extra for your bills, and your where you live, your company's is saying, yeah, we're sticking with this company, then guess what? You're gonna have to find an extra £1,000 somewhere. If you're living in a shared house where maybe there's 5 of you, and the landlord has a long-lasting relationship with Thames Water, the water supplier, and then they say we're increasing your bill by £300 a month, a year, you're gonna have to find out how to pay that, or you're gonna have to find somewhere else to live. This is what's going on in society, man. It says residents in blocks of flats up and down the country are being hit with energy bill increases as much as 700% because they are not protected by Ofgem's price cap. You're only protected if you have a domestic bill, where ultimately pretty much you can negotiate or look for a switch or find somebody that's going to be able to cover you. And even in that, the government's only going to give you £350 as a discount, and £200 of that has to get paid back over 5 years. It's a mockery. This man is the devil, man. The cap will rise by a record 54% in April, but an estimated 800,000 homeowners and tenants are on communal networks that heat large buildings. Yeah. Big contracts with large companies. The contracts are negotiated for all residents collectively by freeholders and managing agents. Because the contracts are classed as commercial, not domestic, residents have no protection from rising prices. Though, those modern new flats, Canary Wharf, those kind of areas, many more flat owners and tenants will also be hit with increases to electricity bills to cover up communal lighting and the energy used to pump water to higher levels of buildings, campaigners have warned. The government has confirmed that while the vast majority of leaseholders will qualify for a £200 discount on bills, a measure announced by Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, some will not. Residents of Pan Peninsula development near Canary Wharf in London received a letter in December quoting a 1000% increase in the unit price for gas used in their communal heating system. So you'd have had some jakes thought they were fancy going to Canary Wharf to live in a fancy new block of flats with an indoor swimming pool and thought they were going to live the life, and now they got to find an extra £1,000 out of somewhere to pay for this shit. The quote was reduced after wholesale prices decreased in January, but tenants and leaseholders are still facing a 450% increase in their gas bills. People are seeing some shocking increases to their bills, man. It says here, just skipping through it, this sector is crying out for a regulation. And ultimately, man, they're not going to qualify. So what's going to happen? A lot of people are going to fall short, man. They're not going to be able to pay their utilities. They're not going to be able to pay their rent. People are going to be out here on the streets. Homelessness is about to go through the fucking roof, man. It's not a joke. And Esau Edom, ultimately, although he's building up all of these riches for himself, is going to vomit them up. Why? Because Proverbs 13:11, wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth by labor shall increase. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. You see, this man is the devil, man. He promises people all kinds of shit. Like I remember with the stimulus payments in the States, they would literally have people wait until literally they were at death's door, man. So they had the bailiffs waiting, and they had to stand off against the bailiffs and lock them out of the house. And then the next day, after making them wait like 2-3 months, they'd give them the money. And that's to build up people's dependency, make them hopelessly dependent on the system, man, to the point where they'll fight to defend it, man. But hey, man, at the end of the day, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai is coming back to translate this kingdom from the wicked onto the righteous, man. Because all Esau Edom has is riches got by deceit, man. He's defrauding the poor. He's fucking Jacob, but ultimately he's not gonna take none of this with him, man. Sirach 10:8, because of unrighteous dealings, so like your injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. And you see these elites, man, bro, they have so much money. Even like the frontmen, the lesser luminaries, like your Jeff Bezoses and your what's his name, and that devil, man, the Microsoft guy, man, Bill Gates, and all the rest of these other guys, man. Their names escape me at the moment, but Elon Musk and all these clowns, they could literally go on a spending spree and spend £1 million a day, pounds, dollars, whatever, £1 million a day, and they would literally die. They could die and come back in the reincarnation in another life, and their family line would still have money to spend. But guess what? They don't want to be dealing with that, because they want everything, and they want not just the money, they want Jake's soul, man. They want to kill Jake. If they could kill all of us, they would. But for the ones that they got to keep around, they want you, up Revelation to the 13 to the 16 up. They want you as perpetual slaves. You watch a movie like Justin Timberlake's In Time. That's how they want you, man. Literally just about surviving. Snowpiercer is another good example. Literally perpetual slaves, man, willing to do anything, man, just to get the crumbs off master's table. That's what they're building, man. That's why nowadays they're pushing the initiative of not having a car of your own, renting cars. Zip cars are becoming mad popular. They're pushing that whole thing of don't like they're making it impossible for you to purchase a home, because with the Bank of England also increasing their base rate, the cost of lending, everything from credit cards to loans, if you've got those, and they're not set at agreed fixed rates, go higher, man. Overdraft fees, everything goes higher, because the Bank of England charges higher interest rates to the retail banks, so the retail banks pass on that cost to the consumer, man. And that goes for everything, as well as car finance, finance on any sort of thing, home appliances, jewelry, whatever, man. Because no company wants to foot the bill that they have to pay back to the bank. So ultimately, it all comes back down to the consumer, man, and makes the cost of life more expensive. But this is what I'm saying, man. This man is the devil, man. Why is earth and ashes proud? He thinks he's gonna be able to amount riches and fight the Most High, man. There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. For such a one setteth his own soul to sell. Hey, he sold his birthright for some red pottage to our forefather Jacob, man, and he's upset about it to this day. For such a one setteth his own soul to sell, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. Yeah, man, he sold. Is there a more profane person as Esau for one morsel of meat sold his birthright? Even though in the spirit he was meant to do that, it just shows you that this man is nothing but the fucking devil, man. And that's why he's got to be stopped, and he will be. Just to close up, Proverbs 11:4, riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness, man. This is gonna be another Haman trying to set up the gallows against Israel, and the Edomite Esau Edom, the devil, man, starting with his elite banking families all the way down to your average Edomite are going to fail, man. All of these riches that they've built up, all of this money laundering through this whole planned setup, all of that, those tax havens, all of that money laundered through art, all of those gold reserves they've got, all of that is going to be the property of the Israelites, man. In righteousness when the Lord Yahweh Shai makes his return, man. This place is burning, man. And it's gonna be a time of trouble such as none other, man. We're gonna be on the earth to witness it. Brothers are gonna have to, be around to witness, the higher prices coming up in April, the difficult times, the famines. But what did the Lord say? At famine and death we shall laugh, man. As long as we keep ourselves in spirit, the right spirit, and keep praying and honoring Yahweh Shai, man. He's gonna continue to watch over us, man. And Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Ratazar, man, will make it out of here, man. Stay strong, Akim, man. And remember to honor the Lord in all that you do, man. Pray always, pray daily, like Apostle Rakar always pushes. Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Barakatham. Shalom.